Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800.
Hello and welcome. I'm Bonnie Libhart and you're watching Vision Plus. We are here on location in South Carolina, and we're happy that you join us. We're in Greenville, South Carolina, and a lot of you have heard of the Tea Party. We've had some of the people on from the Tea Party in Huntsville, Alabama, and Mo Brooks and some others that were Phil Williams and some people that ran for office that were elected. And you may not realize that there's also a group called Rhino Hunt that started about the same time as Tea Party, and we have the person that's the founder of that in Greenville, South Carolina. We were here for one of the meetings that they had, and I want you to help me welcome a famous name, Kepler. We think of crackers and a lot of good fun stuff for snacks when we think of that. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, tell us your name and a little bit about the name Rhino Hunt.
Okay. My name is Harry Kepler. It's almost like Keebler, but I can't shake any money out of the hollow trees. About a year and a half ago, the Speaker of the House here in South Carolina, at the end of the session, sent out an email to, I would assume, thousands of South Carolinians, and he was bragging about what a great job the Republican Party had done here in South Carolina, talking about how they had reduced spending, reduced taxes, shrank the size of government, and it really upset me because all of those things were the exact opposite of what really happened.
What did happen?
Well, our government expanded probably close to 20%.
Whoa.
Taxes were, the total amount of revenue collected by the state increased. They created some new positions, gave pay raises, the whole 9 yards, and yet the message that was sent out was the exact opposite.
You said something in your speech last night about they would say, well, we're going to raise it 10%. We only raised it 8%, therefore we save this much money.
Yeah, we cut spending. We planned on spending $200 million. We only spent $100 million more than what we did last year, so we actually cut spending. Well, what made that even more shameful to me is the fact that in South Carolina we have a predominantly Republican legislature. We have an overwhelming majority of Republicans in our South Carolina State House, in the House of Representatives, as well as in the Senate, and we have a Republican governor. And it just really got up under my skin that at the same time that the Republican Party on a national level was telling us that there's not much they can do because they're the minority party in Washington, that we have to go along with what's going on because there's not enough Republicans. In South Carolina, it's the polar opposite. We have a majority of Republicans, and yet our state government continues to expand and expand and expand. We are either the last in the nation or second to the last in the nation in just about every category that you can think of. And this is all happening under the banner of a Republican state.
So are you a Democrat?
No, by far no, I'm not a Democrat. I am a Republican. But I fully understand what the Republican Party platform says. And the problem that we have is the fact that the Republican, the elected officials that are elected as a Republican, they do not follow their own party platform. And
so is that how Rhino Hunt, and how'd you get the name? Is that a person?
No, it's not a person. Rhino is an acronym, stands for Republican in name only. That's really not original because you hear that a lot all over the place, and you heard the word rhino before Rhino Hunt was ever organized. But the Speaker of the House in that email, the very last thing that he said was that he wanted to hear from us here in South Carolina because our voice drives debate. So I sat down over a period of a couple of days and wrote an email back to him, letting him know that I graduated from high school and I knew how to count, I knew how to add, and that I was fully aware that South Carolina had a majority of Republicans running the state, and that they were not upholding their own party platform. And I used the label rhino. And I told him that, but we have room for hope, because when they go back into session, Rhino Hunt will begin. We're going to hunt down as many Republican and name only. We're going to seek out candidates to challenge them in the upcoming elections, and we're going to replace as many as possible on both a statewide basis as well as local, as far as county offices and things of that nature. I also told him that I would spend the next year going around the state and organizing and as many people as possible, so that we could have close to 50,000 true conservatives that would reform the Republican Party here in South Carolina.
Wasn't that just exactly what the Tea Party is saying and doing? And
absolutely.
How are you different?
Well, we're not really different, but we're the only difference that I would say is that the Tea Party is a little more broad-based, that they are opposing expansion of government by all parties, Democrat, Republican, whatever, and we are specifically focused on the Republican Party. And the reason that I say that is, or the reason that is my focus, is the fact that we know what the Democrat Party stands for. We know that they are a party of bigger government. The government is the answer to every problem. They're the party that is commonly accepted as the liberal wing of the American politics. But the Republican Party is more dangerous than the Democrat Party.
Uh-oh.
In the fact.
In the trouble. You're in trouble.
In the fact that if I come to your house and I'm dressed all in black, I've got the black ski mask, the black gloves, the black everything, your neighbors will easily spot me as being the guy that's going to break into your house.
Right.
But if I come dressed as a U.S. postman, it appears that I have a purpose for being there, and nobody will look twice.
True.
It gives me cover that I can achieve the same objective of breaking into your house as the guy dressed in black, but I've got cover that makes me more dangerous. The Democrats, I really believe that well over the majority of the American people, if you look at a political spectrum, way more than half are in the middle to the right than there are from the middle to the left, and the overwhelming majority of the American people do not like more government and less freedom. They want more freedom and less government. So the Republican Party, in my opinion, is more dangerous in the fact that they tell us one thing. They're the guy that's dressed in black. They put on the disguise of smaller government, but they turn around and they do the exact same thing as the guy dressed in black. They break into our houses, they rob us, and they steal from us under the guise that we're the good guys. We're the postman delivering to your house. And so therefore, that's why I say they're more dangerous to the American freedom than the Democrats.
And how do you figure that?
Well, when you put Nancy Pelosi behind the Speaker's podium, we know what to expect. You agree?
Sure.
But when we put Lindsey Graham, a Republican, behind a podium, because he's a Republican, do we expect him to share our values of limited government, constitutional restrictions on government? We expect that, but has he given us that? Lindsey Graham votes most of the time on issues right along the path of the Harry Reids. And it's only until we start putting pressure on the Lindsey Grahams of the world that he starts pulling our direction. We shouldn't have to babysit these people. They're the ones that came to us and said, this is the Republican Party platform, these are the things I believe in. If you elect me, I'm going to represent you. But when they get up there, they want to play footsies with the other side of the aisle, and they end up voting with the others. So that's my premise for why I say that the Republican Party in general, now we have some shining stars of hope in the Republican Party.
What would you say some of those shining stars of hope?
Jim DeMint comes to mind. Governor
Palin?
Sarah Palin is another example. Governor Perry in Texas. These are folks that are demonstrating by their behavior and their voting records and what they support. They are actually demonstrating what I believe in. But we've got the Olympia Snows. We've got the Lindsey Graham's. We had Bob Inglis, who was a congressman from right here in Greenville, South Carolina. These people are not representing the true Republican Party platform.
Conservative.
Exactly. Which, by the way, Bob Inglis, Congressman Inglis, we went to him, I personally went to him and said, you are not upholding the Republican Party platform. You are not representing the views of your constituents who elected you. He refused to listen. Bob Inglis was a target of the rhino hunt, and we took him out. He's not going back to Washington. He lost his primary. And we can't take full credit, but we had a part in the fact that Congressman Inglis is not going back to Washington.
So, why do you, is this a pretty large group, the rhino hunt, and is it in other states other than South Carolina?
Well, as you experienced last night in our meeting, that was one of our smaller meetings. We had, 50-some, maybe 60 people. We typically have anywhere from 100 to 130 people at any given meeting. We have rhino hunt chapters in some other areas in the state of South Carolina, which you would expect. This is where rhino hunt was organized, so it's going to expand here, first. We have members of rhino hunt in about 27 different states. And what always tickles me is every time somebody joins rhino hunt that's out of state, it amazes me because I see them joining from places like California. That gives me hope. We don't think of California as being a conservative state, but there are Republicans all over the United States that are fed up with the way that the party is carrying out our business. You asked me earlier about, am I a Republican? I'd like to go back to that. I ran for office here locally for county council, and I ran as a Republican. One of the gentlemen at our meeting last night, after the meeting was over, he asked me, he said, how could you run as a Republican? The party is in shambles. I said I wanted to run as a Republican so that if I were elected, I could set an example for what a Republican really is. I want somebody to see on a local level what we currently see in people like Jim DeMint.
And what do you think it's going to take for the Republican Party to get back to the conservative issues that we in America think of as conservative?
I think it's a great question. Thank you. I think it's going to it's a two-pronged attack that we have to look at. Number one is we have to weed out through the election cycles incumbent Republicans who are not upholding the party platform. That's the first thing.
What would you say well, go ahead and finish that, and
okay.
I'll ask you.
The second thing is we need to encourage citizens, true conservative citizens, to get involved in what I call the party machine. The party machine being the Republican Party organization. A lot of folks don't understand that both of, all political parties, but we typically think of the two main parties, the Republican and Democrat parties, A lot of folks think that that's part of government. The parties are not government. They are private organizations, just like the Kiwanis or the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. They are a private organization that uses their collective influence to form policies through electing folks into office. And we also need to reform the party machine.
So I don't care for the name machine, but I know what you mean.
Right.
The good old boys of the Republicans and girls of the Republican Party. What I was going to ask you was, why don't you enumerate what you think the true conservative platform should be?
Beautiful question. If folks will go to rhinohunt.net, www.rhinohunt.net.
And that's R-I-N-O.
R-I-N-O.
Might get a T-shirt if you drive all the way to Greenville, South Carolina, and have a television show to interview the founder.
But to answer that great question, the first page that comes up when you go to that website lists everything that I think, and it wasn't just designed by me, lots and lots of people had input on what is included in that first page. And it lists everything that we believe.
What are some of the primary listings of those?
Constitutionally limited government.
Now, can we order some of those books? You actually have the Constitution in a small pocket-sized book.
Yes, ma'am. You can contact me through rhinohunt.net, and I can get those out. As to some of the things we believe, that constitutionally limited government. Some people say they get the words mixed up. I'm hoping that they mean what I mean, but they'll say limited constitutional government. No, I'm very particular on words. I want constitutionally limited government, not limited constitutional government.
Okay, how do you see that?
Constitutionally limited government simply means following our Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution is what is known as the enumerated powers of the Constitution. It enumerates what the federal government is responsible for, what they have a right to do, what they have an obligation to do. Things such as our national defense, establishing our currency and setting the value of our currency, those types of things. The federal judicial system, that is part of the Article 1, Section 8, to establish those things. But when you read down through the rest of it, by the way, Article 1, Section 8 is a very short, very small outline of what they have the authority and the rights to do. When you finish reading through and you get to the Bill of Rights, the 9th and 10th Amendments clearly states that whatever powers were not given to the federal government, all other powers are reserved for the individual states and the people of those states. Now that just makes it crystal clear in my mind that if the federal government is severely limited by Article 1, Section 8, and then the 9th and 10th Amendments say that all other powers are given to the states and the people, where does the majority of power rest in this great nation? It rests in the states and the people, not Washington, D.C.
And those rights determine so many things that, and what are some of the primary things in the last 5 minutes or so of the program that you think are important for the future and the hope of our country?
You've got wonderful questions. The number one thing that gives me hope for this nation is the renewed interest that I am seeing in average, everyday people of all ages, all creeds, all races, is the renewed interest in understanding our Constitution. That to me is, we have been dumbed down, and I hate to use such an offensive term as that, but we have been dumbed down for so many decades through our failed education system. Mr. Obama and the like, they want to talk about our failed healthcare system. Our healthcare system is the best in the world. Everybody knows that because everybody in the world, when they need something, they come here. But very few people come here to get the best of educations. Our education system is what has failed. And we have been dumbed down, and I believe intentionally, to the point where very few people understand the Constitution. And we're doing Constitution classes. And I see the light bulb moments when people start seeing what our founding fathers envisioned for this nation. That is my single largest hope. The second thing, and I think that was brought about by what I'm going to say, is the second thing that gives me my hope. That is the whole liberty movement. Some people call it the Tea Party movement, and I think that's great. We can call it the Tea Party movement. My favorite word is liberty movement, because I think that encompasses everything that the Tea Party, groups like myself, other wonderful groups that are started around the nation, we're fighting for liberty. That's my hope.
And I can see that's so true. Our granddaughter was going to be is a senior in high school this year, and she had failed history, so we took her to Washington, D.C. so we could go to all those. She didn't, when she spent a day in the Holocaust Museum, she didn't think that was real prior to that time.
A lot of people are trying to teach them that didn't happen.
That's true, but that's just one tiny little thing. And
that's right.
When you study, so many of the things have to be just like what you did last night, open in prayer and close in prayer, and you had elected officials there,
yes,
and
ma'am.
People who had run for office and did not get elected, and they were saying really the same thing you're saying.
Right.
And we used to always open in prayer, and if you go to Washington, D.C., you'll see so many verses across the buildings and prayers and belief in our Creator, our God, which is so important to us.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're hoping. If you had one thing to tell the whole universe, and you had the last 90 seconds to say that, what would you say? That we do have hope.
Get involved.
Get involved.
One of the other most dangerous things in the world is apathy. Apathy and fear. Both of those will paralyze you to the point where you're going to sit on the sidelines and let these things happen. I'm 43 years old. I didn't have my political awakening till about 3 years ago. And someone asked me, I get asked quite a bit, but just recently someone asked me, Harry, how do you find the energy to do all that you do? And I've got a full-time job. I'm not independently wealthy. And I work 40 hours a week. And then I do this activism, spreading this message. I probably do this close to 40 hours a week consistently.
I'm sure your wife and 2 daughters would say that.
Yes, for the last couple of years. What got me to this point was when I saw that I sat back and did nothing for all of the years, and my children, and at some point, hopefully I'll have grandchildren, while I was watching their future being wasted, and then understanding that my forefathers, my grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, they served in wars and put their life at jeopardy so that I could enjoy freedom, and I have sat back and done nothing to protect it for my own children and at some point my grandchildren. That's my message. Get up off the couch.
And if you would like to know more, Harry Kepler is willing to come to Alabama,
yes,
the non-financially wealthy person, and teach classes on the Constitution. And so we're real excited about that possibility, so that we can get back to our roots.
Amen.
So we can get back to what our country was founded on. Like my ancestors, I'm a daughter of the American Revolution, so we go back to the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
And so we want you to get this booklet on the Constitution. Get in touch with us at that toll-free number if you would like to take the classes on the Constitution, and Harry Kepler will come to Alabama and other places too. This is around the world. You can pick this program up on the internet. I'm Bonnie Libhart, along with Tony Libhart and Harry Kepler in Greenville, South Carolina. Bless your heart for watching.